What is the dumbest thing people did during the pandemic? The French government was pretty stupid. They had several lockdowns and people had to print out and fill a form authorizing themselves to leave their home for a certain duration, usually 1 hour. Police officers were patrolling every single forest path trying to catch people having a walk, and fine them if the said self-authorization wasn't filled properly. I spent Christmas 2020 there, and seen whole families taking off their masks in a parking lot to greet friends and cheek kiss each other. Followed the advice example of politicians, celebrities rather than health experts. My mom was in and out of the hospital during the height of COVID and would sometimes have to sleep in the hallway because it was so packed. It pissed me off watching people pretend nothing was wrong when their neighbors were dying all around them. I even had a neighbor hire a lawyer to change the cause of death on her mother's death certificate because she didn't believe in COVID. F king nuts. Make mask wearing seem like it was not masculine. We frequently had bikers wearing skull gator face masks on their rides. We would ask them to remove them to enter our business for ID purposes. So they loved wearing them at the beginning of the mask mandates until Trump made them seem weak. These burly old dudes were wearing masks all along, but suddenly Trump tells them to stop, so they risk their health and the health of others because of a rich idiot. Foolish mortals freak out over wearing a mask. It really wasn't a difficult thing to do for the short amount of time we had to do it. People complaining they had medical issues that stopped them. My mom has coped and asthma and she managed just fine. Seeing videos on here with people absolutely losing their minds at not being able to go into shops, etc., making it into a huge ordeal was so pathetic, made you realize how batshit crazy the vast majority of the population are. Where to begin? Spraying groceries with disinfectants. Wearing ineffective masks that would only go on to pollute the oceans. Being very vulnerable but acting like it's nothing. Diminishing this if you are vulnerable for political purposes, but being hospitalized a month before election day. Wild times. I worked through the whole thing in the original US epicenter and the stories I could share. Wearing masks under their nose or even mouth, especially in locations where local governments had already made a big show about taking away businesses and schools' right to require masks. It's like, you won. Nobody here can legally tell you to wear a mask, yet here you are wearing one as ineffectively as possible. Why don't you just pry open my mouth and cough inside and get it over with? This was just one person, but early on in the pandemic, she seemed super cautious compared to everyone else. Staying about 10 feet from everyone, wearing gloves and a mask. She took out a $20 bill to pay for her prescription, then when she found out it cost more than $20, she pulled the mask down so she could hold the $20 in her mouth while she wrote a check. Not get vaccinated. In fact, the worst and most scary thing about COVID is that it showed that if down the line an even more potent and deadly virus coax about that kills say 1 in 10 people that catch it, you can guarantee there would still be a not insignificant group of enlightened idiots that wouldn't take a vaccine to stop it. Flip out over masking and other requirements, only giving a shit about themselves. Empty stores out of toilet paper. Getting pets during the pandemic and then realizing we know they need work, and then dump them when everything reopened. Freaking out over ingredients in a vaccine but takes cheap dewormer for what they consider a flu. I work in auto repair. One of our guys asked if we could let him have 2 empty oil drums, so we gave them 3. Next day he comes with a horse trailer behind his little Corsa and loads the empty drums. At lunchtime I saw him at the gas station filling 400 liters of diesel at €1.70. Later in the pandemic I was filling up at €1.00. I was very cautious and a rule follower, but even at the time I thought that the one-way traffic in grocery aisles was incredibly stupid. This is not a situation where people are moving forward at a constant pace. I am very confident that of all the things we did, one-way grocery aisles were pretty much the least effective. A local diner reopened and distanced by blocking off every other U-shaped booth, but the rows were the same. So basically instead of staggering it, you'd be in a booth with no one on either side, but a full table directly across the aisle facing you. And the people driving alone wearing a mask. That always got me. Clapping for the nurses, healthcare workers. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the death clapping so much whenever someone noticed us going in and out of hospital. It was very morbid. Yeah, you made it through, we honor your suffering with clippity claps of PPL died but woo you rock be happy. Lots of stuff, but what sticks in my mind was military jets flying over cities to salute healthcare workers. It's like, we can't figure out how to demand industry pivot to making enough healthcare supplies to handle this fucking pandemic, but here's some jets on morons like jets not getting vaccinated, fighting over not wearing masks, threatening government medical officials over mandates and/or medical advice that helped save countless lives. The anti-science, anti-evidence, anti-critical thinking contingent in America is flabbergasting and horrifying. Become entitled when businesses implemented a mask policy. Started complaining about HIPAA violations and privacy laws when the businesses have a right to refuse service to anyone who doesn't follow their rules, and B, it has absolutely nothing to do with HIPAA laws. Preferring death over getting vaccinated, so as to prevent the pandemic from ending on Biden's watch. Spreading lies about the vaccines, like the "it's killing soccer players" hoax. That's how you have 200,000 unnecessary COVID deaths in the summer of 2021. Hold a truckers' convoy in the Capitol and support an attempted coup to overthrow the Canadian government, while the majority of the truckers, the hard-working truckers, continued to work hard every day to make sure that Canadians could live their lives. Keeping schools closed going into the 2020-2021 school year. I understood the need to close them as students finished off their 2019-2020 school year. But any longer than that was bound to have a deleterious effect on the mental health of students. While wearing their masks below their noses, chin, like you might as well just take it off. It's pointless. I can't breathe. Doctors wears one and they breathe fine, so why can't you? Plus are only wearing it for a few minutes anyway, so why are you complaining? Assume they had herd immunity and refused to wear a mask. It was a respiratory virus with so much variance that one could have been asymptomatic. I truly learned how self-centered and blissfully ignorant people could be in 2020. I was a supporter of masks, but wearing masks outdoors on all of our walks was basically pointless. Most of the time we didn't even pass anyone else. I also wiped down all the groceries and had everything delivered. I admit that for a week I baked my mail. Mind you, I work EMS and I was going out wearing the same bunny suit and multiple reuse N95 for 12-hour shifts on end. But I thought for sure my mail was gonna get me. Break into the Capitol building and obstruct Congress without wearing a mask. It's normal to wear masks, and masks might have prevented these people from going to jail, but they still wouldn't wear them. Having people wear masks to their tables at restaurants just to take them off to eat. They always made me do this as a host, and it was embarrassing. Like, dog, this ain't saving no one from COVID. Not know how to wear a mask and not wear a mask. Seriously, children in Asia as young as 3 know how to put one on themselves properly. Why does the West still struggle 4 years later? By far, the dumbest thing people did was buy into the Koch reopen propaganda and turn COVID into a divisive political topic. A close second would be the Canadian Freedom Convoy. People buying pretty dumb during the Rona, huh? Heard some folks thought drinking bleach would cure it. Can you believe that shit? Gotta love natural selection at work. Force all the smaller stores to close, but not the bigger stores that sell the exact same things, effectively concentrating more people in a more crowded area. There was a trend on TikTok where people challenged themselves to swallow as many pills as they could, and as you can probably guess, it didn't end well. PPL, coughing, spitting, sneezing on PPL to try and prove COVID was not real, which I never understood their logic. Cause COVID or not, that's still nasty TF. I'm a nurse. We were wearing double masks and face shields, and people were taking off their masks, panting, saying they couldn't breathe. Really? 24-hour stores now cramming the same amount of shoppers in a 12-hour window, lining them all up outside and only using one door. Shall I go on? I'd say shutting down and destroying a large amount of small businesses could have been handled better. At least after we figured a few things out. Chin diapers. I am talking about the people who wear masks that aren't covering their nose or mouth, just strapped across the chin. Refer to the pandemic in the past tense as if doing so would make it end. Currently about 1 in 20 in Canada have COVID right now. Collectively, brought half the economy to a complete standstill for a couple years over a virus most of us eventually got anyway. Clearing out the dish soap and disinfectant aisle. The amount of people who didn't already have that on hand makes me feel slimy. Suddenly decide that germs might not be real and that cheap dewormer is good for humans to fight the imaginary germs, of course. Had to work on my fucking yard. Read the play. Built 3 guitars. Took saxophone lessons. Some of those are dumb, in a way. Died to own the libs like Phil Valentine and other Herman Cain Award winners. Set a load of rules about not having a party, then get caught having a party, and try to deny it in front of Parliament. Wearing a mask to a restaurant. Taking off that mask for 1-2 hours during dinner, then wearing that mask when they left. Was the gas scare not during the pandemic? Times blend together, I suppose, but pouring gas into plastic has gotta be it. Directional arrows for grocery aisles. does literally nothing except make people spend more time in the grocery store. In Australia, people were allowed to draw on their retirement savings to buy shit like TVs. That's got to be up there. Wear masks while driving alone. Exercising outdoor with masks on, and random people telling random people what to do. Probably insisting that the pandemic doesn't exist, as if some million Americans simply willed themselves to die. High school and college marching bands wearing masks with holes in the middle so they could blow into instruments. Be a morally sound and ethical person instead of applying for max PPP loans to pay off student debt or buy houses. I felt dumb for wiping down the groceries with disinfectant wipes, but also I didn't catch COVID. Believe the jab would protect them from infection while simultaneously avoiding unvaxxed for fear of infection. For me, the dumbest people are the ones who are still masking up and practicing social distancing to this day. The people that wore their mask below their nose or removed their mask when they needed to cough or sneeze. The clear plastic barriers that were added between registers at retail stores. Some places still have them. Stocking up on UHT milk and Doritos. The way to get over a respiratory disease is UHT milk and Doritos. Listen to our politicians instead of using common sense, and lessons learned from past pandemics. That weird period when they were walking out onto their front doorstep and clapping. WTF was that? Price gouging certain necessities such as food. Not exactly dumb per se, but definitely scummy. Buying milk in ludicrous amounts. You don't need cereal every day. Have a bagel or something. Listen to the US president at the time. Simply put, his words cost people their lives. Mask on while walking to your table at a restaurant, but then okay to unmask like WTF. I tried to build a teepee on top of my bed with 3 broomsticks and 2 blankets.